everybody, so as I recently discussed in a video and I asked for some suggestions to go on top of the ones that I'd already thought about, and thank you for that because you had some great ones. I want to talk about things that as a new rider you are told not to do by your instructor and by more experienced riders, but you will see experienced riders like myself doing them. You might say that that's duck. You might say that that's hypocritical to tell someone to not do something, but there is a difference. The experience means so much. So I'm going to run through these without going into ridiculous amounts of detail, but just to explain to you why these things you're told not to do, they're a good idea as a new rider to not do them, but as time progresses you tend to naturally pick these things up a little bit. So the first one is something I wasn't even doing at the moment, ironically, but it's covering your brake. When you're taught to ride, you're taught to have your hands on the grips, you know, and if you want to brake, well then you go to the brake. The reason why they want you to do that is because as a new rider with inexperience, you are far more likely to just grab the brakes really hard and yank them in. You do that, you lock the front, you're going to go down. As an experienced rider, I don't do that. I don't have panic braking. My natural default, subconscious reactions to when I'm riding a bike is to grab it progressively. And a lot of it is to do with the fact that once you've ridden bikes or any used machinery or done anything for a long time, you don't think about how to do that thing. Like, I'm not thinking, how do I want to get this bike to go where I want it to go? It's more like an expression and the bike does it. Like, I just have to will the bike to do what I want it to do, and my brain's going to do all the thinking part. Like when you're walking, you don't think, right, I've got to swing my left leg out, bend my knee, turn the ankle a bit, then I've got to land on my toe, then the next one I've got to do, and you don't do that when you're walking. That's what it's like when you have been experienced for long enough that you don't think about it. And as I say, more experienced riders' natural reactions are not to panic brake. That is only something you tend to see new riders doing. Thus, that is why they teach you to not do it. Also, at slow speeds, you don't even have to jab at the brake that hard. You can get the front to not even lock, it just has to sort of like pivot a bit and it can throw you off. I talked about that in my video. It's in the playlist Tips for New Riders, very popular playlist, and there's a video in there about slow control, and I talk about and I show what happens when you turn the bars and just tap the brake at slow speed. It will try and throw you off. The second one is also braking related, and that is to do with trail braking. You are told as a new rider, do not brake in corners. Because again, you're asking a lot of the tyre at that point. You're asking it to grip for the corner and you're asking it to also brake, and the likelihoods are that if you brake in a corner, the front wheel's going to lock and again you're going to go down. And the instructors will teach you, never brake in a corner, never do it. You know, you want to come up to the corner, brake beforehand and then go through the corner. However, there's a thing called trail braking, which is braking into a corner as you're going around it. So the reason you're told not to do it as a new rider is because you're very likely again to come off. As an experienced rider, you'll do it because, well, if you're on track, like MotoGP races, it's faster. This is not something I will do in the wet, this is not something I would do off-road, this is not something I would do on gravelly roads and stuff like that, but on a warm day, if I'm having a little bit of a spirited ride, I will use trail braking, and in some cases, just normal riding, I use trail braking because it's a lot smoother to do. Another one, and this is a pretty simple one, is speeding. Now, obviously, all instructors are going to tell you, do not speed, never speed, do not speed, do not do that, only go the speed limit. And then they'll go a lot more over the speed limit when they're not riding with you. And I'm not saying here that you should speed, because you shouldn't. It's all about time and a place. However, as a new rider, there is a tendency for you to want to gun it around, you know, and the thing is, you aren't used to the speed, the time you have to react and things like that. For instance, braking zone, if you double your speed, you quadruple your braking distance. It's not linear, it's exponential. And that's why a lot of new riders will go into a corner too fast and then they'll panic in the middle of it, kind of, and it's a combination of a few things, and then they end up target fixating. That's another one where you just look at something and go straight on. New riders are the ones that tend to target fixate, but that's not to say that experienced riders can't. So while you're learning, you're only going to make your life a lot more difficult and risky if you start trying to ride fast everywhere. But obviously once you've been riding for a while, you might find yourself going a little bit faster here and there. It's all about picking it up progressively, and it's also about time and a place, and in the city, in a town, in 30s, in 40s, these are not the places to be doing it. The places to be doing it, if you're going to, is quiet, like back roads, like, you know, national speed limits that are nice and open and straight, and you can see around corners. Don't go flying around blind corners because you don't know what's around it, you know. Again, that comes down to the whole speed thing. Another one that was suggested, and this is a great one actually, I really didn't think about it. When you're taught to ride, you are taught to downshift like so. Okay? So you're just off the throttle, clutch in, down gear, clutch out, throttle on, or a little bit of throttle as the clutch comes back on, you know, that's how you're taught to do it. However, experienced riders do not do this. We all rev match. Rev matching being blipping the throttle as you change down a gear. I will try to show you why we do that in a minute. You will do this more when you're slowing down from speed. And you're using engine braking a lot because it's going to smooth the transitions between the gears. I've explained what engine braking is in a video called What is Engine Braking, so if you don't get that, watch that. So I'm clutch in, blip the throttle, while the clutch is still in, changing down gear, then letting off of the clutch. And what that then does is allow you to smoothly transition between the gears. So instead of having a deceleration force feeling of like, it's just a boo. And you don't really use your brakes while you're doing that because you're doing that all with engine braking on the rear wheel. The easiest way I can explain this is if you think about that your bike's doing 7,000 RPM in third, say, and you then put it straight into second, at the same speed, the engine needs to rev a lot higher, yeah? So it's going to go if you click down a gear. If you've ever dropped a gear by accident, you know the feeling. Well, what you're doing is you're raising the revs up to be the same place that they would be, and then they'll come down and match in with where they want to be for that lower gear. So they'll kind of, with a blip, throws the revs up and it comes down. Whereas in what you'll do if you just drop down a gear straight away is just it's going to go, it's going to be jumpy. You want it to smooth out. It's a bit of a complicated one to explain, but there you go. Again, you don't need to do this to ride on a motorcycle. They won't teach you to do it when you're learning, but everyone eventually starts doing it because they're fed up of doing this. The last one is this. We will say that line up there is a set of traffic lights. In your test you'll be told, or in your training you'll be told to put it into neutral, let the clutch out carefully while holding the rear brake to make sure the bike doesn't jump away, make sure you're in neutral. Then when you want to pull away, you put it in gear, shoulder check before you pull away and go. Shoulder check is important. You don't really need to, and this is another suggestion, you don't really need to put it into neutral every single time you stop. If you're stopping for a while, then yeah, it's just comfortable to just do that and, wait a minute. But try and keep your foot on your rear brake, because if you get rear-ended, it helps slow the bike down a little bit. There could be a few arguments backwards and forwards on this one, but it is true to say that, as someone suggested, when you're being trained, you will be told to go through the whole procedure of how to pull away, going back into neutral and doing all that. And you just don't do it once you've been riding for a while all the time. You just do it when it's longer than you want to sit there with the clutch held in. Will it do any damage to the bike? No. It's just the clutch being held in. If your clutch wasn't disengaging properly, then yeah, I suppose it could damage your clutch, but otherwise no, you're going to be fine. So there we go. I think that is 5 things that experienced riders do that new riders are taught not to do. I'm not suggesting that any of you who are new riders start trying to do this. Like, oh, I'm going to try it and trail brake. You're probably going to come off. It's something that you do subconsciously and you pick up with experience, and as you get better as a rider, you'll start doing these things quite naturally. So don't force it, don't try it and do it. The rev matching is probably the one that I would say, if you're going to try something, try that, because it will just make your life a lot nicer and easier to ride on your bike if you're finding your downshifting is a little bit jerky. So there you go. If you found this video interesting or useful, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, smash the like button, and if you really enjoy my content and you want to help support me, well, there's ways to do that. Links in the description. I have hoodies and t-shirts and merch, keychains and all sorts. And also I have the Spicy 110 metalworks if you want to check that out. And of course, a massive thanks to my Patreon supporters who went up the screen earlier on. Come on, join my Patreon, help me out. If you want to see more videos like this, check out my playlist, Tips for New Riders, and you will find everything you need to know in there pretty much. This will be in that playlist as well, as I'm knocking out bit by bit everything you could possibly need to know. Anyway, thanks for watching, catch you next time. Bye bye. If you enjoyed this video and the other content on the channel, please consider following the links in the description to show your support.